Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Figgy Studio. My name is Bridget, and today I'm sharing a simple, creative, deen-inspired art project to help us with our prayers. For this project, you will need 9x12 watercolor paper and board, painters or masking tape, a pencil, an eraser, crayons, watercolor pencils or paints, a cup of water, and a towel or a paper towel. So let's begin. So we're going to position our feet on our paper and keep them within the left and the right edges, and almost until you get to the inside portion of your feet, the arches, so that still looks like feet. Remember to go lightly so that we can erase later. You can get those little toe shapes as you go, and that's it. Okay, now this is going to be us standing on our prayer rug. Make a line, can have some movement in it because my rug is coming towards me. So now we want to do some tassel shapes. Now we're going to do the fringes. You see, I'm not drawing each individual string, just doing the overall shape. It's got some chunky tassels. When we're focused on our prayer, we're supposed to be looking down in front of us, kind of like where our eyes would naturally fall. And I want to add geometric shapes and patterns, or things that help remind us of Allah's infinity and His perfection. So I'm going to add another row, and you notice that I'm not making them super straight, and that is because there's movement in the carpet. This is going to be a design in the carpet, kind of like a prayer niche. One thing that prayer rugs will have is what's called symmetry. Whatever you do on one side, you want to do on the other. So we need to tape this to a board because when you're using watercolor paper, it's really common for it to curl up, which can become frustrating. We are going to go ahead and Sharpie this out. It's a good one. Using the black line pen gives it kind of an illustrative style. Maybe you see that style in the children's books that you read. And right now my tassels look like little acorns. As we add some simple curved and wiggly lines to our tassels, just gonna get our ideas down on the paper so that when the time for Salah comes, we can have khushu'a, which means we really want to focus on our prayer. We don't want to be thinking about, oh my goodness, I really have to do that homework, or what am I gonna make for breakfast tomorrow? There's so many things that can go through our brains, and that's only normal because, we're created as humans, but we're trying to focus in, like maybe while you're doing this artwork, you can just be thinking about those things now. Get it out now. Make sure I'm gonna call my parents. I want to check in on that sister. I want to check in on my brother. I remember that I saw somebody down the street and it looked like they needed some help. So we're going to think about all of that now. When it comes time for Salah, you're not thinking about it anymore. It's been thought of. Gonna go ahead and trace out the feet, and then we'll be ready to erase. Now I'm gonna keep the socks on in this feet portrait, so let's erase. Okay, one of the cool things about crayons is they're made of wax, so they repel the water in the paint. I'm going to use the white crayon to kind of indicate where the lighter tones would be, like on the tops of my toes. I'm coloring lightly, and this is white on white, so we won't see the full effect until we paint. Use a little bit of gray. So the white would be on the top of the toes, and the gray would be in between feet finish. In these spaces here, other patterns. Can you guess what my next project is? Be sure to come back to watch this creative deen-inspired art project. See you there. So we're going to add in some stars with the crayon. Just kind of put in like little X-over shapes. With the white, you can also use other colors. You want to get scientific about it. Stars are different colors. This is just to allude to praying the taraweah at night. And now we are set up for painting. If you already have a watercolor palette, you want to wake your paint paint up. I'm having a hard time talking today. I tend to stick with what I have. Sometimes I go through and clean out my palettes and start fresh, but I'm gonna start with what I have. 2 containers for water. So one will do the initial rinse in and then a clean out and a towel below. Now, you don't have to do your rug in a sky, but that's what I'm doing. If you want it to be kind of midnighty, you can add in some blues and purples, some blacks. I'm gonna work in kind of patches so that while they're still wet, I'm gonna mix in other colors. See that they kind of just run together. So I'm gonna work little bit by little bit and then go back and fill them in. And you can see that there's a place where the paint is not going. That's where I have my crayon. So that's gonna stay whatever color I put there. You have to be kind of patient with watercolor too. That means that you may have to let it dry in between certain colors if you don't want them to get messed up. I could go back in and just touch with a tiny little bit of this red maybe. Why am I gonna do red? And they say, 'cause red and blue make purple. That's right, guys. Good job. You see that I'm not really painting in the whole shape, and I'm doing that because I want to use different shades of the color to make it have some form. If you're working with small children, you might opt to use watercolor pencils. They can color in a whole area or make patterns. Continue with a damp brush and they have a watercolor. I'm going to do some browns. Browns can be beautiful. This is going to be a warm brown. I'm mixing in a little bit of red. Okay, I think I like that color. We can see some of the texture from the crayon, which makes it look a little bit more carpety. Try not to add too much water or create friction with your brush because it'll break down the paper. I think it's saying we need something more up here, right? If you're really impatient about watercolors drying, you can use a hairdryer to speed up the process. Every piece of art is like a learning experience, so don't be afraid to try new things. Lesson in material, lesson in patience, lessons in, yes, even math. We're using geometry, we're using symmetry, but life lessons too. Patience and perseverance, all things that Prophet Muhammad SAW exemplified. Alhamdulillah. So we started with a 9 by 12 piece of paper, which is a pretty good size, especially if you're of a younger age. It's gonna feel like a big piece of artwork. Depending on attention spans and how fast things dry, you can always put it aside and come back to it later. It makes for a nice project during Ramadan because it can always be there. It's like, oh, let me go grab that and start on it again. I love how that's kind of blue in there. So beautiful. Tie these little tassels up. Stick this down here. Can't see them anymore. That's okay. We'll say hi to them later. All right, decisions. Black diamonds in the middle or on the edge? Let's do the edge. So the cool thing about this is that everybody's work is going to be different. Different shapes, different colors, different feet, different socks, different tassels. Your background might be different. I love to see the completed art projects, and I'd like to see yours. Tag me on Instagram. And I hope that is those skills that Allah gave you, and they too will gain a sense of peace and remembrance of Allah from your work. There's blessing in that. SubhanAllah. Oh, merciful. Allah's so merciful. Thank you, Allah. Decided to try the yellow. See if it's gonna add the punch that we need here. So it's gonna look different once we take this blue tape off. Right now it looks like there's a lot of blue, but there's really not. Okay, I think we're gonna work on the feet. We're starting to get some sunshine in here in the window. We're gonna use a big brush and just start so we can see what's happening with the crayon underneath. Make sure my brush is clean. I'm gonna add a little bit of blue where things are going back in space. So when you use cool colors, it gives the illusion that spaces are receding. See a little bit where the shadow is on the sock. I'm gonna let this dry and then I'll come back and put another color on top. I mixed up kind of a muted lavender here. Gonna see if I can zoom in. So I decided to leave the feet on the brighter side, just so they can kind of come forward from the rug. Okay, there's my socks. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off this tape. You want to pull very easily and kind of pull it back on itself. Go super slow. Let's take this away from the board. We are ready for prayers. Taraweah, here we come. Inshallah, we'll see you soon. Assalamu alaikum.